of increasing temperatures may not feel vivid on the beaches of the Caribbean. After all, this region is only marginally warmer. But strange developments are connecting these islands to a climate change event thousands of miles away. The story begins with the surprising rise of two diseases. Physician Michelle Montiel has long felt her home island of Trinidad is a great place to grow up. But lately she's begun having doubts. Every day she confronts a medical mystery that hangs like a shadow over the entire region. For growing numbers of children here, the simple act of breathing is becoming a challenge.
What time did you have to use the ventilator? What time?
This morning when I got up.
Oh, this morning? And what time you got up this morning?
Got up 7 o'clock.
Okay, all right, okay. And are you using a spacer with your medicine? Growing up in the Caribbean, I didn't know very many asthmatic kids.
Sometimes.
It was not in the radar screen at all. I cannot remember having any asthmatic friends. I cannot remember any children in my schools having inhalers. Okay, so put it in your Nowadays, I would say it's a common problem. And that is the perception among the medical fraternity here in Trinidad. That it's increased and it's continuing to increase.
Confronted by the suffering asthma was causing, Montiel dedicated herself to investigating this growing epidemic.
I found that there was almost nothing written about asthma or allergic diseases in Trinidad. So, as a result, I embarked on my research in this area.
Montiel would soon discover that she wasn't the only researcher in the Caribbean puzzling over an unexplained outbreak of disease. Marine biologist Ginger Garrison first fell in love with the region's coral reefs more than 2 decades ago. They were colorful, overrun with fish, a visual wonderland. But over the years, these reefs have been transformed by a wide range of assaults, including the emergence of mysterious diseases. Sea fans, a kind of coral, are looking ragged.
It's been very disheartening to be noticing the changes. I feel as if my work has been documenting the declines of reefs. And it's a painful thing to see with less coral, fewer fishes, less color, and it's a loss.
The decline of Caribbean sea fans, like the region's rising asthma rates, was baffling. What was causing these diseases? And why were the outbreaks occurring now? Incredibly, a link would emerge tying these mysteries together. It would involve something the region has known for thousands of years. Dust.
You're listening to WVWI in St.
Dust
Thomas,
from
the US
thousands of
Virgin
miles
Islands.
away.
It looks like we're going to have some hot and sunny skies over the next couple of days into the weekend, but early into next week, forecasters are predicting a Saharan dust event coming our way. Dry weather, hazy skies in the forecast. Up next, some new music.
50 years ago, Lake Chad was one of Africa's Great Lakes. Water stretched as far as the eye could see. But a decades-long drought reduced Lake Chad to 1/20th of its former area. The lake's retreat has been so swift, more than a few valuable assets were left high and dry. This fishing boat once represented a family's hopes for a better future. Today, it is a monument to nature's power to turn human dreams to dust.
When I first came here 35 years ago, this place was beautiful. This is the shoreline of the Lake Chad. And looking this side, right through, it was full of water. And lots of fishermen were here.
Lake Chad once produced so many fish, the Nigerian government built a research lab on its shores. It's now a crumbling reminder of the prosperity the lake once provided. For almost 2 decades, Kaka Mustafa worked here as a senior lab technician. Often he would walk outside to watch his children playing in the shallows. Now his son is grown. Unlike his father, he has few memories of the lake. It matters little to him that the structure he climbs to call his goats was once used to measure the depth of the water here. As the shoreline has retreated, entire communities have pursued it, regularly rebuilding on the edges of the shallow channels that remain.
Their lives were much better. They had a lot of income. Basically, the people now depend on livestock keeping and agriculture. That is basically rainy season agriculture.
This part of the world has always had cycles of drought, but this one's been especially harsh. No one is sure if global climate change or some other factor is driving it. Whatever the cause, the result is more dust. And lately, more and more of this dust is getting swept into the air and blown toward the Americas, thousands of miles away. Back in Trinidad, Saharan dust is now a prime suspect in Michelle Montiel's investigation into the rise of childhood asthma.
Patients with asthma would say to me, you know, doctor, my symptoms are worse when there's dust in the air.
Okay, here's some more patient files.
So I certainly wanted to investigate whether there was any correlation between dust cloud cover over Trinidad and asthma admissions.
Those would be good inclusion criteria. Sharad, what about the Sahara Dust visibility data and some of the climatic factors that...
With the help of some of her medical students, Montiel spent hours analyzing case records, searching for a link between asthma admissions and African dust. In the end, they found a significant pattern.
We have found that, in fact, when we have Sahara dust cover, there is an increase in the number of asthmatic children coming to the accident and emergency departments with worsened asthma a day after the events.
Ginger Garrison's investigation into sea fan disease was also focusing on Saharan dust. She and some of her colleagues had begun to suspect that the large range of the illness was a clue that they should look for some kind of infectious agent that could be carried in the air. Perhaps the dust was carrying an unidentified but harmful pathogen. As she was mastering the fine art of dust collection, an American microbiologist made an announcement that convinced Garrison that she was on the right path. He had fingered a soil fungus called Aspergillus as a likely culprit in sea fan disease. Garrison immediately contacted him and asked if he would analyze her samples. He agreed, and Garrison, anticipating a lengthy investigation, shipped her first batch for testing.
And in the very first sample of the atmosphere in the Virgin Islands that I took during an African dust event, he found the pathogenic strain of Aspergillus sodowii, which causes sea fan disease. And we were absolutely astonished because we did not expect in our wildest dreams that he would find it in the first sample.
Garrison is now intensifying her efforts to uncover the full sweep of health effects caused by Saharan dust in the Americas. She's training local residents on a number of islands to collect air samples. She hopes to get samples from Africa soon, too. And Garrison is now starting to look for a wider range of harmful agents in the dust.
Get into our lungs. And so we're talking about endocrine disruptors, carcinogens, mutagens, trying to see what kind of nasty stuff there is. It's dusty today, and we need as much sample as we can get.
But as the case linking Saharan dust with Caribbean diseases gets stronger, a nagging question remains. Dust has been blowing over the Atlantic for millennia, so why are we seeing these problems now? Surprisingly, some of the best work on that question is taking place in Colorado. That's where Jim Hurl spends his time. Hurl is one of those people who are always looking for links and connections. It's the kind of trait that produces great conspiracy theorists. But it's not political intrigues that fascinate Hurl. He's obsessed with the inner workings of the global climate system. Especially a remarkable feature of the atmosphere that sits over the Atlantic. Two gigantic air masses, one high pressure, the other low. It's called the North Atlantic Oscillation because the high and the low fluctuate in strength season to season and year to year. Together, these two air masses propel Atlantic storms across the sea. When the system's in high gear, it draws those storms far to the north, changing temperature and precipitation patterns over much of northern Europe and Eurasia. At the same time, the winds around the southern edge of the high propel African dust toward the Americas. Sailors and climate scientists alike have long considered this system unpredictable. But lately, a pattern has emerged, one that caught the eye of this atmospheric scientist.
during the 1980s and the 1990s, that random aspect basically disappeared, and we started to see that the North Atlantic Oscillation tended to be in the very intense phase for one winter after the next, and it's persisted that way for much of the last 20 or 30 years.
Hurrell figured something must have jammed this system, but what? He retreated into the world of computer climate models to seek an answer. He had a prime suspect: Earth's rising temperature caused by the buildup of CO2 in the atmosphere. When he included that buildup, his model faithfully reproduced the fixed configuration of the past few decades. When he removed it, the model showed ups and downs, the old fluctuations.
What we find is that the North Atlantic Oscillation does not behave the way it's been behaving over the last 20 or 30 years. The only way that you can get that behavior is by increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
Somehow, Earth's rising temperature is affecting the year-to-year behavior of this massive atmospheric system. But how? In solving one mystery, Jim Hurrell had uncovered another. Back he went to his models. He began to focus on one area of the world where average temperature has been rising particularly fast: the Indian Ocean. When he added the rise in Indian Ocean temperatures to his model, the fixed pattern in the North Atlantic suddenly reappeared. Hurrell thinks he knows how the warming of this distant ocean could affect the atmosphere over the North Atlantic.
As the tropical oceans warm, it produces more rainfall over the tropical Indian Ocean. This is really a burst of heat energy to the atmosphere that can perturb the atmospheric flow for thousands of miles downstream from the Indian Ocean.
This energy ripples through the atmosphere like a wave in a pool. When it reaches the North Atlantic, it reinforces the energy of the North Atlantic Oscillation, producing the pattern we've seen in recent decades and driving more African dust to the Americas.
What's emerging is this amazing picture of global connections where one part of the globe can be connected to another thousands of miles away.
The complexity and the large-scale linkages that are global, that are involved in this entire process, are mind-boggling to me. The warming of the Indian Ocean, and then how that affects the North Atlantic Oscillation, and that affects how the dust gets mobilized in the Sahara. Then you get a lot of dust in the air getting blown over to the Caribbean.
I think that what my foray into this area has really done for me is that it has really brought out to me how we are really just one globe. We are one world, and how events from one part of the world can impact so forcibly on you in a totally different part of the world. I've never visited Africa. It seems a million miles away, but in fact, changes there are affecting us here in the Caribbean.
Without realizing it, we've turned up the planetary thermostat. Our world's getting warmer, and it's going to keep getting warmer. How much warmer will depend in part on us. On how soon and how seriously we take up the challenge of trying to control climate change. The good news is that people everywhere seem ready to do just that.
I actually think there is reason for hope. I think the change definitely begins individually.
We simply have to do more.
We can all contribute something.
You know, the small things do count, I think.
It'll add up and help a lot.
While the things we can do now don't always seem so significant, if enough people start reducing their energy consumption, it will make a real difference. As we learn more about our impact on climate and the effects of climate change on all of life, The pressure on industries and governments to do their part will also grow.
How are you? Good to see you.
Ideas have tipping points too.
One thing you can control is your energy consumption. You can do it as a good citizen, and you can do it as a good businessman, as an entrepreneur.
Think of it as buying our children and grandchildren insurance against future climate disasters. It may prove to be one of the best investments we can make for them. How should this new view of Earth change the way you live? I can't tell you that.
That choice is up to you.